All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Workbench, your resource rich weekly podcast and newsletter for home services and all local business. Really excited to be joined here by Courtney Lightfoot, the CEO of Squeegee Squad, a 80 location,
Yeah,
80
we're
business.
we're 80 we're 80 franchise owners, and some of those are multi-unit franchise owners. So
Love it. Yeah, 80 locations, 80 franchises. Really powerful stuff, Courtney. Super excited to dive into, your position as CEO, the growth of this business, how it all works, and just dive into that for the audience today. But just to kick things off, Courtney, we'd love to just learn a little bit about you and your background, and then we can dive into those details on Squeegee Squad.
yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. I have been with the company for about 17 years now. My backstory with them. I graduated from Bethel University with a psychology degree, intending fully to go into the psychology world. And ended up not following or pursuing that passion of mine, but rather, I got married and was pregnant and looking for a job still that kind of fit those molds, and ended up job sharing with my sister. And it was for Jack and Joe's Window Cleaning Inc. Squeegee Squad. And was doing some office admin work for them. So very part time, very pregnant with my first, and kind of just doing the office admin roles of answering phones, scheduling, a little part of that business. Fast forward to a few months later, I had my firstborn, and they approached me to see if I'd be willing to come back to work for them. Being a first time mom, I was hesitant. And so I decided to approach them and say I'd be willing to come back if I could take my baby to work with me. And so they agreed with that, which to me was great. They valued the same things I valued and put family first, and allowed me to have the best of both worlds. So for the first 2 years of my son's life, he came to the office with me. So I was multitasking mom role and also being an office admin for that period of time. And along with that, Jack and Joe, who are the founders, they started the window cleaning company in 1999, just the two of them. And we're kind of doing some window cleaning for residential work on the weekends. Both had different passions or pursuits that they were doing in college and started in different industries. One of them did graduate with some business background, and the other graduated and thought he was going to go pre-med, and that didn't work out for him. He ended up in the stockbroker world and was in an office in Minneapolis. And part of that is he was doing that day in, day out, and doing window cleaning on the weekends with his brother. And so they started to really ramp up the business, and came to the point where he was making more money doing window cleaning than he was at his actual 9 to 5 office job. And so that's where they both took a leap of faith and really started to dive into the window cleaning business then at that point. They developed a fairly large residential window cleaning business. Probably, I would say, around $1 million dollars in window cleaning residential wise. And so at that point, they started to consider what would this look like to franchise this business. We have a great thing going, we have a good model in place. And so both of them, probably in 2005, really started to look into franchising options.
Hmm.
They got coordinated with somebody out of iFranchise to develop some systems, to develop infrastructure, all of the legalities around it, and really started to take that on. And with that, they thought that it was just going to catch fire, and they were just going to start selling franchises at a rapid pace. And so they started to do that. However, it took a while to really get that first one sold. And the first one they actually sold was to one of their residential customers, and they sold it to his son. And so they peeled off a little bit of the Twin Cities metro area in Minnesota to him. We're still running some of the window cleaning industry and selling franchises. So my role with them started to shift and evolve as they started to grow that side of the business a little bit. Still doing a lot of office and admin and miscellaneous, but now with new franchises coming on, Started to do some tech support, some training, some legal, some accounting. And it was just the three of us, myself and the founders, Jack and Joe, for a long time, providing that support. They eventually started to sell off more and more of the window cleaning industry, or the Twin Cities flagship that they had, to that owner. Who owned some of the southern metro area, and basically peeled themselves out of the day-to-day window cleaning portion for the most part at that point. Kind of during that time, they really dove into some commercial window cleaning as well. And that was a brand new industry for them. So there weren't I don't think actually any other window cleaning companies at that time who were doing both residential and high-rise commercial. Not many other high-rise commercial window cleaning companies are going to be interested in kind of training you in and taking you under the wing. So it was an endeavor that was probably took a lot of lumps on, I'll say. It was a huge learning curve to figure that out, to work with businesses, try to earn their business, and then start to make a profit off it. So we developed some great relationships with property management companies, janitorial companies, and that did start to eventually scale and grow on that high rise. And to date, in the United States, we're the only window cleaning franchise company that does both residential and commercial high rise window cleaning, which is a great selling feature for some of our franchisees, as they can kind of evolve their business at a quicker rate with that commercial high rise component in there as well. Yeah, and so like I said, my role has shifted and evolved as the company has grown. And it for the longest time, like I said, it was the three of us until the fall of 2021. The founders decided to take on a third owner, and that third owner was the actual first franchisee. And so Joe joined us as the third owner, and then it was the four of us. And at that time, fall of 2021, early 2022, we really looked at our business model. How were our franchisees doing? What were we doing right? What were we lacking in? And really started to evaluate how we can better support our franchisees to get them growing at a quicker rate. So we started some new initiatives at that time. A lot more about the onboarding training period that we hold, post-training opportunities, some ongoing education, and really continue to develop that. With that expansion, I think, again, it was just the four of us from about 2021 to then 2023. I think I finally waved the white flag a little bit, like I'm in need of some support, or we need to grow our support team to start really supporting our franchisees in the capacity of which they need and deserve. And so at that time, probably from May of 2023, we added on 3 additional support members. So we basically doubled our infrastructure on a support capacity, one of which was a business coach, 2 who really predominantly handle our onboarding and training periods. And so that really allowed us to evolve. Since that time, we've gotten vastly better at onboarding our franchisees, getting them properly trained, and growing their individual businesses at a much higher rate than we were previously. And so with that evolution, again, of me being able to pull back out of some of those day-to-day, peel off some of those tasks to other people now that we had the infrastructure in place, the management or the ownership team allowed me to step in and have a little bit more of a voice on my opinions of the company and where I think it's going and what maybe changes we could implement at that time. And so that came with the appointment of me being CEO. And that was February of 2024. So just over a year and a half. So long history with the company, short period of time in this particular role. But it's been definitely a great journey along the way.
So CEO, I think, is a job that's kind of hard to be trained for. You can't really go to CEO school. So what was that process like? Obviously, you've been with the company a long time, and so you knew the inner workings of the company probably as good as anyone. What was that process like for you to go from, employee, kind of generalized employee to the CEO, which I imagine comes with a lot of extra role and responsibilities and stressors. How'd you navigate that transition?
Yeah, full transparency, still navigating.
Okay.
I think there's still things I'm learning along the way. But with that process, like you said, I think I've had a knowledge base about all areas of the company and a franchise business and how it should run. And they've molded me into that kind of position, I would say, along the way, the founders and the ownership structure. And so part of that is having that relationship and building that foundation with each of those franchise owners. And so I've had great relationship with them. I've been able to listen to them, take some feedback from them, and also project how I think things would help them ease their business or, scale their business at a quicker rate. And so with that change of roles, there has been some education in place, and some of that's just self-education of, doing some reading of books or different podcasts or listening to different materials of people who have maybe made a similar path or change. With that came a little bit more education on managing people and setting meetings and cadence of what that looks like, to listen to their feedback of our direct team, and constantly kind of have a pulse on every aspect of the company. The dynamic is a little bit different. I would say that the founders and the owners still do work in the company, and so it's discussing that day to day with them as well. So we have, weekly meetings where we're all jumping on, discussing any potential issues, potential wins, and then cascading that down to our team. So for me, resources have come in the form of some, business consultations. We've also made some steps in meeting with or speaking with management from similar service type franchise business as well. And so gleaning some things from them, maybe hopefully helping them with some other things we've learned along our path as well.
Really cool. And I'm checking out the website here as we're talking. 80 franchisees or 80 locations is no joke. Talk to me about, because I'm the CEO of a company. We're two people. It's a software company, Lead Truffle.
Yeah.
My listeners know it well. So just even being the CEO of a small company is stressful, let alone potentially having 80 stakeholders who I'm guessing at a moment's notice might be hitting you up or calling you or texting you or emailing you with issues. Like, what is the process for managing both the 80 existing franchisees and then onboarding new ones in a systematized way that, you just don't end up pulling your hair out because you're so stressed trying to, manage 80 business owners at once?
Yeah, I have yet to encounter somebody that feels like they have like a really balanced way of life, whether like personal versus their business. And that's something I'm continually working on. I think part of like the beauty of what we've created or that founders have created in that relationship with our franchise system is that I think one or any of us is always going to be available. And so we
Yeah.
really try to remain open, whether that's, email, phone, text. I think I had a few phone calls just right before I jumped on the podcast here. And I have a few waiting for me, like when I'm finished. And so I think it's just, that was part of the excitement, I think, of this job all along the way is that, I never knew what the day was going to hold. It was always going
Right.
to be something new, something different, maybe a challenge, maybe a victory, along the way. And so I think what I've learned along that time frame, though, is if there is an issue or if it seems like something's arrived, it usually resolves itself pretty quickly. And then there's something else the next day.
Hot topic, AI. Everyone talks about it. I talk about it. I'm building an AI company for home services, so it's no secret that
Yeah.
I focus on AI often. But you've been with the business for many years now, so you've seen all of the trends come and go. What are your thoughts on AI? Is it overblown? Is it legit? How are you using it, Squeegee Squad? What is the CEO of Squeegee Squad, Courtney, have to say about AI for home services? I'm curious.
Yeah. So for our industry, there's some ways where I've seen it benefit, and some ways where we have caution or draw some hesitation on it. In some areas, we've definitely used it or I've tapped into it. We started as a team saying, like, well, this is the base of what we have in place. How can we amplify this or use AI to streamline our process or make this more efficient as we're developing different systems or documentation or templates for our franchisees to use in a lot of areas. We do have some franchise locations that use a little bit of it, on their website. Um, where we draw some hesitation is maybe just around the safety components of some of the aspects of our business. So we want to be overly cautious that we're presenting the right information as we abide by OSHA standards and IWCA, and making sure that that's high priority for us, the utmost importance to make sure that our franchises are safe, their technicians are all safe. And so there's some areas where we're a little bit more hesitant to really dive in, and we want to have control over those areas. But I do see potential for it to be implemented in other areas. So we're still definitely exploring what that looks like for us.
We've talked to a fair amount of franchisees as well as franchisors, and I think people listening are often balancing the build versus buy conversation for becoming an entrepreneur. From what you've seen, without obviously getting into specifics, what is the difference between a successful and unsuccessful franchisee? Like, what are the key attributes you've seen from the folks who join Squeegee Squad and absolutely crush it versus folks that maybe don't work out? And we could generalize here again, but someone that's thinking about franchising or becoming a franchisee, like, what makes for a great one?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a curve along, I would say, of kind of figuring out um, who that great fit is in our franchise system. And so what we're finding is with any small business, whether you're, going it on your own or you're a part of a franchise system, experience in sales is going to be a huge impact on your business. And that's not something you have to maybe come in with experience, but maybe you're open to learning more about it. You're not afraid to get out there and introduce yourself to other people and really put yourself out there as the face of your business. And so sales has been integral. That's where we do find a lot of our most successful franchisees. And then it's the other component is those that do reach out to us, do have frequent communication with us as the support team. And that doesn't always have to be issues. That can just be regular communication like, hey, today went really well. Here's why. We find that those that do really get involved in the franchise system, and that can be with other franchisees within the system as well, they do really well because they're thriving on other people's energy and they're thriving on other people's, wins or failures or interjecting information. And so we're always bouncing each ideas off of each other. Um, and I would say those that are maybe less successful are those that maybe take the name and the brand, which is successful because the brand is definitely recognized out there. But they're trying to maybe reinvent the wheel on their own inside that franchise system. And so maybe taking some areas of what we're saying, but maybe trying to still develop and cut off and kind of run their own business within the franchise system. But
Yeah. Now, I think for some folks like who are thinking about growth for their business, they're like, "Oh, no, I'm going to own everything. I want to open every location and control freak." And if that, that's a little bit of a harsh term, but you know what I'm saying? Like people are like, "Oh, I don't want to necessarily delegate so much of this to a franchisee." Like you saw the growth of Squeegee Squad up front. Like, how do you think about the opportunity to like grow without franchising versus with? Like, do you think certain businesses are better for franchising than others? Does it always make sense to franchise? Like, what have you noticed about where franchising makes sense where versus where it's like, hey, it makes sense to just centrally own everything and open each location?
Yeah, I think for us, it was a model we felt confident in that we could reproduce easily. And so being able to reproduce that, but not have to be in the day to day of having multiple corporate units to us made a lot more sense. That we could take that model, take that information and directly teach somebody else how to be successful in that in their individual market, and partner with them along that journey. That was definitely the ideal option for us. And so that's still how we're continuing to grow that. We do have an arm of our business where we do have a team that will maybe go out to an unestablished area, start generating some sales and revenue. And we do have a traveling crew that will perform some of that work, with the goal that we can then turn that over, convert it into a sale for a franchisee coming in as well. And so we're definitely still exploring some of that. For us, franchising did absolutely make sense. I think in a lot of service-based businesses, it does make sense if you have the right model and the infrastructure. Franchising definitely isn't easy, not an easy pursuit by any means. But I think it definitely can make sense in most service-based businesses.
Whatever, anything worth doing is never easy, as they say. Courtney,
Absolutely.
anything we didn't cover here that you wanted to get to?
Um, Let me think here. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot I'm missing,
Yeah.
but not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll end with this. From one established CEO to a new CEO, what's one piece of advice you'd give a new CEO as they begin their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think consistently, like, staying educated,
Yeah,
remaining
big,
humble in that you're
huge.
not going to have all of the answers.
True.
And leaning into, I think is what I'm finding, just leaning into the other resources of our team members to say, well, what do you know? Or what have you seen that I haven't seen or
Hmm.
don't know yet? And approaching it more from a team and listening to that component to say, now what can we take from this and implement into the entire system?
Yeah, love that, Courtney. Appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy CEO with a busy schedule, so appreciate you making some time for us here at the Workbench. For folks who maybe are interested in Squeegee Squad as a franchise or just want to follow you and connect with you personally, where can folks find you?
Yeah, so Squeegee Squad as a whole, we are on our website, www.squeegeesquad.com. Whether you want to franchise with us or you need a free quote, and we have someone in your market,
Yeah,
we'd be more than happy to assist. Me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, as well as our team.
great. Courtney, appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, great. Nice to meet you, Bryan.